Hi, I'm Jim Taylor. Welcome to In Favor Resources and to another video in this teaching series titled, Your Words Are Powerful. This is what God says about what you say. And we're looking at here at video number 18C, and it is the third of three on the power of declarations. We're still using the same handout we had for 18A and B. So go to infavorresources.com and download number 18. If you haven't already, it's free. And all of the objections that we handle today are on that handout. It'll be very helpful to you. So using that handout, we've already learned that declarations are biblically based faith statements about what is true, even though they may not be present or fully present in our experience yet. Our declarations must be in God's will. We must believe God can do this, and we must be doing it for the right reasons. So now, let's look at some of the objections and some of the answers. And as you can see on the handout, these are based on the work of Steve Backlund. Steve is kind of the dad of declarations. He has a very powerful ministry, making this mainstream and forcing us to question and to ask ourselves, are we using our words in the right way in our lives and in our ministries? So, objection number one to all of this talk about declarations. Doesn't this override God's sovereignty and manipulate him? Well, first of all, you can't override God's sovereignty, but does this try to manipulate God? No, it does not. Imagine that you've just been appointed as a police officer by the mayor of your city. And you took the oath and he put on the badge, and then he commissioned you to go out on patrol and uphold the law in his name and in the name of the city. So on your first day at work, you're standing on a street corner and some guy goes flying by at 100 miles an hour. And what would you think if the policeman turned around and looked up at the 10th floor of the building and said, "Hey, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor." And finally the mayor sticks his head out the window and says, "What?" And he said, "That guy, he was driving way too fast. You need to do something about it." The mayor would say something like this: "Wait a minute. You're wearing the badge. This is why I gave you that authority. This is your job now. I'm expecting you to do something about it." Well, in the same way, we have delegated authority from God, like that policeman, and he infuses our words with power. So, for example, God told us to go out and heal the sick. It's not being spiritual to turn around and ask God to do it instead. God gave us powerful words to use in declaring his will on the earth. Next. This is just another form of name it and claim it, or I like this one, blab it and grab it. No, it isn't. All biblical truths can be misapplied. They can all be abused. In fact, they probably all have been. Like with Paul and James, Paul said, "You are saved by faith in God alone." And some people took that to say, well, we never have to do anything. And James said, no, don't think that some deluded faith that doesn't issue in any kind of response or work for God will save you. And so then other people said, oh, we got to work for our salvation. Well, see, both of those extremes are wrong. And people have gone to one extreme or the other over the ages again and again and again. Don't let people who have abused important principles like this one ruin it for everyone. Because we can powerfully declare in God's will, in faith, for the right reasons. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. No matter how many people might be abusing this, there's still that kernel of truth here. Next, you can't have something just by saying something. Well, that's true. But it's also true that saying something is necessary to having something. Do you remember John F. Kennedy from the last video? If he doesn't say we're sending a man to the moon, it doesn't happen. He said it, and it came true. Now, saying something is not the only thing you do, but it is one of the things that God asks you to do and expects you to do. So, pretty much in the world, if something happens, it means something was spoken. Next, well, this is a formula. I declare this. That bypasses a relationship with God. Well, anything can be made into a formula, even great things like prayer. Anybody remember the Acts prayer? Adoration, confession, thanksgiving, supplication. That doesn't mean that prayer isn't true, it isn't real, it isn't powerful, just because somebody can turn it into a formula. It doesn't have to be a formula any more than telling your spouse every day that you love them has to be a formula. So make sure you apply that here with declarations as well. Next, well, this sounds like mind over matter or New Age teaching. No, this is faith over matter. God asks us to believe and not doubt. Just because someone else in some cult or some other religion or somewhere else on the earth believes some of this doesn't mean that it's not true. It doesn't mean that it's not from God, even if what they say sounds very much like this. We've given Scripture to support this. This is a biblical process and a biblical principle. Well, the last one, and this is a very practical one. I tried it and it didn't work. Well, there are a lot of us who have tried it and found that it does work. But even so, there are some things that we continue to do, things like loving people, serving God, serving others, reading the Bible, and so on and so on and so on, that even if it doesn't look like it's working at the time, we're going to keep on doing it. I call your attention to the last quote in the box on your handout. This comes from Steve Backlund himself. Much of what I am experiencing in my life now is because of what I declared 25 years ago when it seemed ridiculous. You will reap a harvest if you sow with your mouth and do not give up. Think about it. Your words are powerful. Your declarations can be powerful. Are you a weakling? If you say every day, I am strong, you will become strong. Is it possible that something is missing in your life simply because you haven't spoken it into being? Is there something out there that's just waiting for you to say it? Next video, and the last few, I promise. The power of personal prophetic words. What Paul knew and what we've lost.